There was a man who was hired by this fancy museum filled with luxurious items to guard a stone. Just a plain stone, just gray, dull looking, some black spots, brown spots. In fact, the stone looked much like the stones he saw growing up. To him, it really wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't anything special in his eyes, but he was getting paid, so he's going to guard this stone. The people who hired him knows that there is this notorious thief who is out to get this stone. And this thief happens to know that this stone, which to the man, this guard, appears to be worthless, this thief absolutely knows the value of this stone. He happens to know that the stone is worth $4 billion. This man thinks it's probably worth maybe $400, if that. Pause for a moment and consider, who do you think would have more tenacity and energy and motivation? The guard guarding the stone he thinks is worthless, or the thief going after the stone to steal it who knows the true value of the stone? Of course, it's the thief. That is the enemy. You see, you are the valuable stone. But a lot of times we don't know our own value. You see, God in Jeremiah says that he knew Jeremiah, which also includes us, before he formed us in the womb. Not just before we were born, but God knows us before we even formed in the womb. That means God has a knowledge and a value on us that we will never fully understand. You see, the enemy also knows that value. While the enemy does not value you, he does know your value. I'm going to say that again. Hear me clearly. The devil, the enemy, the spiritual forces of evil, they do not value you and will never value you, but they do know your value. Much like that thief going after the stone will not actually value the stone, but he knows the value of the stone to sell it, to split it off for parts, whatever he's going to do with it. The enemy knows your value. And I encourage you not to let the enemy know your value more than you do. All you need to do is just listen to the Lord for what he says about you and about your value. And as we get in Romans 5:8, Christ loved us so much that he was willing to demonstrate his love for us by dying for us. That is to the extent that God values you. My encouragement is for you to accept what God says about you and what he has demonstrated about you and your value. Do not let the enemy distort you with lies. Be motivated to guard the stone that is your life. In the name of Jesus.